Welcome to What's Your St. John Story, a 30-minute segment sponsored by St. John's United, highlighting connectivity within our community through storytelling. I'm Rachel Simonson with the St. John's Foundation, and you can see that we have a little different setup today. We are going on a virtual tour of Gainan's, the former Gainan's building, downtown retail center. Those of you who've been here in Billings for a long time remember this. It was just beautiful. For those who are new to the community, this is what used to be at the corner of 29th and 6th Avenue North. The building is still there, but it looks very different. But let's remind everybody what it looked like inside, because shopping at Gainan's was just an absolutely glorious experience. You walk into the foyer at Christmas time and you'd see the red doors. And then you go a little further into the building and this wonderful retail floor. But as you walked in that main entrance, you would see to your left the greenhouse. And we're going to talk about what this space has become today now. In 2020, the Gainan family made a gift of this building to St. John's United. They had vacated and moved to their Midtown location, and the building needed a new owner. And they generously gifted the building to St. John's United. And executive leadership said, well, what are we going to do with this building? And when you drive by today, it is now called Gainan Commons, St. John's United at Gainan Commons. And inside we have home health and hospice. We have our greenhouse, which is what we're going to talk about today, family services, and then during COVID, we had a lab that we created as well for COVID testing and other purposes for our campuses. But we're going to talk about this greenhouse space today, because what do you do with a 30,000 square foot building that already comes with a greenhouse inside? Do you remodel the greenhouse? No, you repurpose the greenhouse. And I'm going to invite Kathy Hernandez, our greenhouse manager, to come in, and Heather Estus, our director of donor relations and annual programs at St. John's. And we're going to spend the next 20 minutes or so talking about our new project at St. John's. But first I'm going to ask Kathy and Heather to introduce themselves. How long have you been at St. John's? What is your role within St. John's? Who'd like to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
So my title is probably the longest title at St. John's, Director of Donor Relations and Annual Programs. So I often tell people, think of it as I'm the friend maker and party planner. So I like to invite people to learn about St. John's, become our friends, and then have events and create moments of engagement for them. And so that's really what I do. And in that process, raise money for the annual fund, which I believe is really the heart of an organization. So that's what keeps the doors open, keeps the lights on. That's really what takes care of that organization. So at St. John's, it's my responsibility to help support the annual fund.
And how long have you been with St. John's?
A little over a year now.
All right, and we're just so glad to have you. And let's talk to Kathy a little bit. Kathy, how long have you been at St. John's, and what does your role entail?
I've been at St. John's for almost 9 months now, and I'm the greenhouse manager, so I get to grow lots of produce for the St. John's residents to eat.
And what is your background?
So I have a background in education. I used to be a teacher for a little while, but most of my career I've been in the green industry. So I've worked as a landscape designer, a ground supervisor, and worked in greenhouses.
All right, so you are tailor-made for this particular project. And we're going to have you take us on a tour. So I'm going to ask Heather to step off for just a minute. We are not at the greenhouse. We are actually in front of a green screen where we can put photos of the greenhouse. And this is our vision for the greenhouse, that we've got a space that is interactive. We've got people watching what's going on. We've got people hands-on participating what's going on at the greenhouse. Kathy, let's talk a little bit about how you get started with the plantings.
Okay.
All right, so we've got a photo of seedlings here. Talk to us what we've got in this tray.
So what you see here is rock wool, which is a sterile, soilless medium. There's no soil at all in the greenhouse. And so everything in the greenhouse is started by seed in this rock wool. And you can see there's little holes in it. So we put one seed per hole, and the seedlings get to grow in that. It's kind of like a sponge, so it absorbs lots of water and is just a great environment for them to grow. So once the seeds are in there, they get placed under grow lights.
Okay. Oh, here we are with the grow lights. You've got a couple of racks of these things. Tell us a little bit
Yes.
about the system, the setup here.
So I have a couple racks, and there's about 4 layers each. So we have the opportunity to grow lots of different plants. So there is a heat mat underneath.
Okay, so
keep-
that's what we're looking at here.
We want to keep them at a warm temperature, around 70 degrees or so. And then above them, they have LED grow lights.
Okay, so that's this thing right here.
Correct.
There would be another one up here. Okay.
Yep, so everything goes under there. And in this picture, you can see, so this right here is going to be iceberg lettuce. And we've got some butter crunch and some oak leaf lettuce. And so right now I'm growing lots of varieties of lettuce and some herbs, and I hope to expand to do cucumbers and tomatoes and additional pieces of produce.
So talk to me a little bit about the watering system here, because we're going to talk about once they get to where they actually mature. Are you watering these by hand every day, or is there a system in place?
I am watering them by hand, but I only have to water them about every other day.
Because of the rock wool?
Yeah, it just holds on to the moisture really well. So it's really not that hard to take care of when they're at that stage.
This brown stuff here would be really good for people like me who forget that
Yes.
plants need water.
Yep.
Is this readily available? Can you get this at
Yeah, you can
garden
purchase
center?
it.
You can?
Yeah, just look online.
I might have to think about that because I have somebody at my house who does the watering, and if he's not around, I forget. All right, let's take a peek at once they mature. This is a plant that is ready to go into the tower, and this is some of that
Yes.
oak leaf lettuce that you're talking about, right? That's really good stuff.
Yeah,
And
lots of fun varieties. And so obviously as it gets taller, it's going to be more ready to get put on the tower. But the best way to tell is if you lift up the rock wool and look underneath for the roots. That's how you know it's ready to get put on the
so they're
tower.
peeking out.
Yep.
Okay, so let's go to the tower then, and here's a close-up of the array of towers. And before you talk about how you're planting them, this is what you're actually doing back here, is planting in the towers, right?
Yeah, I think this day we were actually setting up the towers into the greenhouse, but that's what it looks like when we're planting. It's really nice that it's a vertical system because I've done a lot of planting on my hands and knees and bending over. That's kind of hard on your back, so it's really nice just to be able to plant vertically.
Well, let's stop and talk about that a little bit, because who ideally do you have doing all of the planting? Is it just you, or do you have a staff? Are you using volunteers? What are you doing?
So I don't have any staff, but I get to have resident volunteers and students from the school district come help me with everything from starting seeds to planting on the towers to harvesting and bagging up the lettuce. So it's really fun for me to be able to have those connections with the students and the residents. They've had a really fun time working together, and it's been a great opportunity for intergenerational connections.
Yeah, and so when you were talking about spending most of your time on your hands and knees, and that's kind of backbreaking.
Yes.
If you do it all day long. So really just any resident could come, and our residents tend to be older. They could come and they could just harvest upright.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and there's almost no wear and tear on them at all, is there?
Yeah, the towers are 9.5 feet tall, so we do have to use a ladder to get to the top, but I have students do that part, and the residents can just get what they reach.
Absolutely. That is fantastic. So here we have these towers, and they are in full maturity. And can you tell what's in these towers?
Yeah.
This looks like your butterhead lettuce.
Yeah, we
right?
got butterhead, we have oak leaf over here. I think over here was parsley. There's just a lot of different things. You can grow anything on these towers that have fibrous roots.
Okay.
So
you can't grow a tuber. You can't grow a carrot.
Correct, yep.
So it has to be something that would grow up out of the soil
Yep.
for consumption.
Yeah.
What are we doing with all of this produce at St. John's? Is this for sale to the public?
No, it's not. All of the produce is intended to go to St. John's residents in the kitchens so they can eat really fresh, delicious greens. So it's all meant for them.
That is fantastic, and I can attest to the fact that our residents in our independent living communities are just loving the freshness of the lettuces. There's just nothing like having fresh greens that aren't all wilty.
Absolutely.
Have to be refreshed with water and the like from the grocery store. So speaking of water, how are these towers watered? Because there's no soil, but clearly there's water.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about that system.
So at the bottom here, you can see the basin, and these hold 20 gallons of water. And in that basin, there's a water pump that pumps the water all the way to the very top into what they call the shower head, and it just drips down along all of the roots of the plants. So that pump turns on once every 45 minutes. It's just on for a few minutes, and it trickles down and waters the plants. So I don't even have to be there to water. It just happens.
And it's all happening internally in the tower. It's not like at the grocery store where it sprays everybody in its proximity.
Right.
So if I were to come here and I were working and all of a sudden the tower went off, the watering mechanism, I wouldn't get all wet.
Correct, yep. But you'd be able to see any of these little openings. You could see the water drip down.
Oh, that is just so cool. We're going to talk more about the watering system in a little bit here, but what else would you like to tell us about the greenhouse? You talked about intergenerational with kids.
Yes.
Talk to us a little bit about where are we finding these youth who will come and volunteer?
So each week I have middle school and high school students come and help me in the greenhouse, and they work alongside the residents, and it's an opportunity for them to learn about a possible career path in the future or just to learn something new. I think it's really important to understand where your food comes from and to know the basics of how to grow your own food.
And this is because we have a collaboration with the Billings Public Schools,
Yes.
School District 2. They were a major granting source for getting the greenhouse off the ground. And it's Bo Brunsma in the, I want to say, Career Center. Is that correct? I think so. Anyway, that's what he's doing, is connecting the schools
Yes.
with this education experience. And the greenhouse, it's not actually named the greenhouse, it's named the St. John's Urban Horticulture Education Center.
Yeah, very long name.
Very long name, also known as the greenhouse. But it's meant to be an educational opportunity.
Yes, it is.
And then we have our residents who come and volunteer, and there might be kids there on the same day. So we have intergenerational activities, which is another value hallmark at St. John's, that we have all these intergenerational opportunities for the kids to learn from the elders to teach, impart wisdom, and learn from the kids. Yeah.
It's been really fun seeing them work together. It's just going even better than I thought it would. The kids love the residents, and the residents love being around the kids, so it's just a really fun experience.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit more about how people get involved or not involved at the greenhouse, but I'd like to bring Heather back in and talk to us because the greenhouse is meant to be self-sustaining, and we're going to talk more about that self-sustaining piece with you too as we move forward, because there's some really fun stuff that we'd like to do with the greenhouse itself from an infrastructure standpoint. But Heather, talk about how we've gotten to this point with funding and where we go next in order to get to the place where we are financially self-sustainable.
Yeah, well, you mentioned one already partnership that we have with the school district. So they were able to help us in supplying a partnership to fund the towers, actually, and a lot of the startup costs for us. We also are reaching out to the public. Last Giving Tuesday, we did a campaign and we reached out to the local businesses downtown, but also to the public to engage them, create awareness that this is in their backyard, right? That the greenhouse is now downtown, and what that means for St. John's and for the community. So we invited them to participate on Giving Tuesday, and we were able to raise about $20,000 on Giving Tuesday. It also has helped us to really reach out to a younger demographic. So reaching out to our XY generations or millennials, because we find that this is really something that they're attracted to, the environmental side of it, but it helps them get engaged as well. So people may think that mostly it's an older demographic, St. John's, but it's a community project where all ages can be involved, as you mentioned earlier. So that's a great way to get involved, is go online. So we have an option online to donate. So it's $25 a month, and that supplies 2 pounds of those fresh greens to residents.
Oh, cool.
And then there's other options as well. We are probably about $300,000 away from our goal. We're hoping within the next year that we can finish that. That goal includes supplying some of the operational costs, the sustainability, like the rainwater collection, solar power that we hope to put in this summer. So all of those, the costs are still remaining. We are hoping to get some government funding partnerships and looking to some grantees to support. But of course, if you're a business owner or you're in downtown or you're interested and this project is something that you'd be passionate about, I'd invite people to reach out to me directly. Yeah.
And they can find you on our website,
yes.
stjohnsunited.org.
Yep. And then also, there is, Kathy has done a great job of keeping the story alive online, and so she has a TikTok you can follow. We have a YouTube channel, so they can see what's going on in real time. They can look at all of the things that she's doing, the intergenerational activities, so they can find there, and there's also links there that they can go to donate as well.
Wonderful. Well, Kathy, come back in. We're going to talk a little bit about the sustainability, because that really is the next piece of the greenhouse. We've got the towers constructed, we've got the plants in, you've harvested a couple of crops, right? Yeah, and the residents are starting to eat it, and some of us at staff get to take some of the greens home as well. But we've got this array in the greenhouse, and this is 4 or 5 big, tall green barrels. What are we looking at here, Kathy?
That's right. So these are rainwater collection barrels, and we actually have 7 of them in the greenhouse, and they hold 1,100 gallons of water. So the goal is to collect all the rainwater that we can during the wet season to get us through the dry season.
Okay, and it's one thing to have the barrels, but you need a collection system that comes from above.
Right.
Yes.
Is that in place yet?
No, that's something we're working on with plumbers, is to redirect the gutters so that the water will go right into the tanks where it can be used. So that is some place where the funding could definitely, it's very needed right now.
Absolutely.
That's definitely an immediate need that people can support as well.
Okay. And I wish we had a meteorologist here with us, because I'd like to know, on an average Billings rain, how quickly these 1,100-gallon tanks could fill up. Do you have any idea?
Well, I know that we get around 14 inches of rain a year, and so it's not a ton, but I think with some really big rainstorms and snow runoff, we can fill up a lot of them.
All right. Well, we've had some snow in the last few weeks. It's too bad we didn't have that
collection
system. All right. Well, that's one part of the sustainability, so that we don't have to purchase water. Not that the city of Billings wouldn't want us to purchase water, because they like the revenue from us as well. But this will be clean rainwater, just completely fresh, free of any chloride or anything like that treats the water, right?
Right.
Okay, and that will help us save some financial resources. We also are looking at being energy neutral. How are we going to do that?
So our plan is to install solar panels on the roof. Yep. Yeah, not on the greenhouse roof where the sun comes in, but a different section of the roof, so that we can offset all of our costs for electricity. Because we do have a lot of costs. We've got the pumps, we've got the lights, and so once we have that, then we will essentially not have to pay for electricity.
That is fantastic, because the whole idea of this is that it is something that is cost neutral to St. John's. It's not something that we've done to make a profit on, but we also want to be cautious about losing resources to a fun project. We needed to make it sustainable for the organization.
And all those things that Kathy's talking about helps us with the funding too. So we are not having to raise a lot of money every year to support the greenhouse, because it is pretty sustainable. There will be minor, funding options that we will need to do throughout the year, but that's the idea, is that we don't have to continue fundraising every year for the greenhouse, that it will be sustainable on its own.
Yep, absolutely cost neutral. And this is really unique in a downtown urban setting. Have either of you ever seen a greenhouse in the middle of a downtown?
Not yet.
Not like this one, no.
So this really is, for Billings, a cutting edge to have something be completely off the grid, essentially, in the middle of a downtown.
Yeah, I think it too. It helps others that are maybe in the agricultural workforce to think differently about how they're doing things as well, and what is possible. And even people at home, how they could actually use a system like this. You know, maybe they do live in a suburb, but they could create something like this at home to provide their own vegetables and greens.
Well, and I've actually heard recently that this sort of setup can actually be scalable. You know, they're talking about Colorado River water shortages in the Southwest, and how some of their farming may actually shift to some of these hydroponic towers, aeroponic towers. Is that what they are, aeroponic?
Yep, this is a great way to save water. It saves about 95% of water that would be used in traditional farming. And using, the vertical towers, utilizing that vertical space, you get so much more plants to harvest.
Right.
Since you're not using the ground.
Absolutely. Well, who knew? St. John's United, in the middle of the country, on the north end of the country, in fact, might be cutting edge for horticulture and agriculture.
Yeah.
Well, that's been just fascinating to talk about the greenhouse. Thank you for sharing that. Let's pivot a little bit to how this fits in at St. John's. Kathy, how do you see that this is part of St. John's mission? Why would St. John's take on something like this?
Well, St. John's is all about growing hope, dignity, and love, and I feel like this project is doing that, and it's been really rewarding for me to be part of it. Before I came to St. John's, I was looking for something different and new to try out, and this has definitely been that for me, and it's been a really great experience working at St. John's and being able to collaborate with people and work and have the intergenerational connections, which is so fun. So it's just been wonderful.
It really does provide us another outlet for just everything that we've always said that we do. Yeah. And Heather, how do you see that this fits in with St. John's and your mission, particularly in engaging donors?
Yeah, I think, learning more and more about St. John's as I've been there, I understand that one thing that has been true is that St. John's answers the need. And so when there is a need, like needing fresh greens, St. John's heard that call, but they also created collaboration. And I do feel like at St. John's, it is a very community-minded organization. We say nurturing environments of hope, dignity, and love, but I think we help create the space for that. We are the nurturing environment, and we share that with the community. And I think the greenhouse is a perfect example. It's bringing in different partners from all sectors. Right, so you have the school district, you have the students. There, of course, are residents in St. John's, but there's collaborations with small business, with all the businesses downtown, with the government. So I think St. John's is a great connector to create that nurturing environment. So I see how this plays into all of that.
Wonderful. And if the public wants to come and see the greenhouse, is the public invited to come and work in the greenhouse, Kathy?
The whole purpose of the greenhouse is for the residents and the students to have those opportunities to work and learn in there, but I'm very happy to give tours to anyone who wants to come see the greenhouse.
So any group that wants to schedule time to come see this operation, they're welcome to come and do a scheduled tour, is that right?
Yeah, they can just contact me and we'll set it up.
And the best way to contact you is, again, through our website. We've got a contact me area on most of our pages, and it doesn't matter what page you're on, just say, I'd like a tour of the greenhouse, and it will get routed to Kathy perfectly. And Kathy and Heather are going out into the community. You're going to the various service clubs talking about this, so people are sure to hear about the greenhouse.
Yeah, and if people want us to come speak to their groups, we're happy to come out to them. We've even brought samples to different groups. We've done leadership billings and a couple of exchange clubs, so we're happy to come out, Kathy or myself, or us together, and share the greenhouse with them wherever they're at.
Well, that is just fantastic. Well, in our remaining time here, I am going to say thank you for the good work that you're doing. But as I do with everybody who comes to What's Your St. John Stories, I'm going to just ask you to reflect on this question. That if I were to run into you out in the public, just on the street, and randomly asked you, what's your St. John story? How would you respond?
I would say for me, St. John's has been just a great community, and I've worked with so many people, and I can tell how much they care about the residents, and that's something I'm really proud to work with St. John's and to be part of this really cool project of the greenhouse, and just to be with so many wonderful people.
Thank you. And Heather?
Yeah, I think that the timing for me was perfect to come aboard St. John's because of this project as well. I was born on Earth Day, so it's something I'm very passionate about. But I do believe that St. John's found me, and I'm very grateful for that and excited. It's actually helped me to, being new to Billings and Montana in general, St. John's has allowed me to get to know the community and really feel at home here in Montana. And so I feel like that's really my St. John's story, is that they're the ones that helped me be welcomed here in Billings.
That's fantastic. Yeah. And I will say, as a relatively recent transplant, going on 11 years here in Billings, when I first came to Billings, there were two places that I say gave my soul solace, or created solace for my soul. And the first was the campus of St. John's on the west end of town. And then the second, a girl always needs a good retail experience.
Oh, yeah.
And that glorious experience of shopping at Gainan's also provided solace for my soul. And so it is just so fitting that they have come together, and we can provide hope, dignity, and love in a nurturing environment at our greenhouse that provides food for our residents.
Yeah.
So thank you, Kathy, for what you're doing. Thank you for getting this big task going. It's been a lot of work to get it set up, but it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's just getting started. And Heather, thanks for all you're doing to help make sure that it is a self-sustaining enterprise for St. John's.
Well, thank you for having us.
Yeah, you're welcome. And this has been another segment of What's Your St. John's Story. We thank you for watching, and we look forward to having you join us again.
For generations, St. John's has united us with its uplifting vision and lives it has touched. There are thousands of stories about St. John's. Prayers answered for a long-awaited adoption, pain-free relief after healing from injury, settling into a new home for the next phase of life, the comfort of compassionate end-of-life care, the joy that comes from volunteering, and at-home help that supports the fullest life. At St. John's, we are creating community and bringing families together. We offer many services for home, health, and family, from childcare, support for an unplanned pregnancy, and physical therapy, to home health care, senior living services, and hospice care. For all times of life, we are here for you. The heartwarming stories of St. John's are woven into the fabric of our community. What's your St. John's story?